Okay, everyone. Before we begin, I would like to remind you that we're going to have some class from next door class. So while we're waiting for them to come, I would like to extend a warm thank you to all of you for joining us today. So we hope we have an insightful and fruitful discussion ahead. And I guess we will start about in 5 minutes. Thank you. For the students who just came, please go to the left wings. Okay. Come sit and fill the left wing seats first. And then after that, go to the right wings. Mickey and others, you can go to the left wing first. Okay, for those students who just came, please fill the left wings because we still have some empty slots there. Miss Lisa, maybe you can sit in the front row. Yes. Okay, shall we start? Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, dear students, and welcome to the International Guest Lecture Series on Innovation, Information, and the Network Economy. And my name is Putri, and I will be emceeing for today, and thank you for coming to this seminar. And today's guest lecture class is very special because, as usual, we are inviting a speaker and moderator who are well versed in their area of expertise. So we will overview of the lecture topics on how innovations and information flow are transforming economies worldwide and fostering collaboration and driving growth. And this lecture incites to inspire and equip you with insights on navigating our interconnected future. So I must say that during the talk, please prepare for your questions because it will be very helpful and we will raise it during the Q&A. And now, on to the first session. Let's welcome the Rector of IPMI Institute, Professor Insinyur M. Aman Wirakartakusumah, M.Sc, Ph.D, to give his welcoming remarks.
Good afternoon. All students say good afternoon. Very good. So, welcome to these international lectures programs at IPMI, and we are very honored to have Dr. Harminder Battu and also Bapak Muhaimin from British Council. He's a long associate with IPMI since I was here in 2019. So welcome again to IPMI campus. It is indeed a great honor and pleasure for us to receive our guest lecture. And welcome to all of you. And I'm very proud that all of these are undergraduate students of IPMI. And we are having a lot of guest lecturers coming to IPMI, and I think you will enjoy Dr. Battu, how they becoming a very proactive and also critical student, and they receiving the lectures from all the guest lectures. In particular, I would like to welcome to the faculty members also, this Dr. Yulita Vanessa. She is also the head of the Senate, Academic Senate of the Institute, Pak Agus, and Bu Liza, and who else? Of course, Mbak Putri, all the team from, from the faculties and staff at IPMI. Today, I think we are very fortunate to receive Dr. Harminder Battu coming from us. He is from University of Aberdeen, and Aberdeen or Aberdeen. I was telling him that long time ago in 1983, 1987, I traveled throughout the UK, and I enjoy learning also speaking in British accent. It's different with American accent. But we learn a lot, and they are very advanced in scientific and technological development. I think we would like to hear also from him today how this topic can be seen as the future potential prospect for Indonesia, especially for the younger generation. We do also appreciate to Pak Muhaimin as the representing British Council, because IPMI indeed has tried several times to propose the collaboration with universities from UK supported by British Council, but I think the grant or the project is very competitive. So we are not having enough lucky to receive that grant, but I'm sure that in the future there will be always opportunity to do that. Especially after discussing with Dr. Battu, I'm sure that there are a lot of common interests from the expert and also from us to work together that can be done within IPMI or with collaboration with university in UK. Well, to all the students, when we are using the topics on innovation, information, and the network economy, I think this is very, very important to what is going on now in the case of our country. I think everybody knows, right? The new government has planning to implement very bold policy on food security. They're establishing to build the food estate in some of the islands in Indonesia. And also trying to implement the policy on school lunch programs for the young children in the elementary school, also in the high school. Well, we do also face a lot of challenges in this development, in the economic development. For example, what is happening with climate change on the impact on our forestation or reforestation, for example. And what is the effect on the environmental degradation? What's happening with the green economy? Also the blue economy, because we are indeed is the archipelagos countries when water is more than the land. We do also see the effort of government to implement the green economy using for example, technology in the electric vehicles, the batteries, manufacturing, and downstreaming is also one of the very sexy and very, challenging topics, because we would like to have the value added stay in our country, Indonesia, to increase the economic growth and to improve the people's welfare. So with that scope, I'm sure that Dr. Battu is going to share with us the importance of innovation, the importance of, again, information, and later on, what are those impacting on the economic development, economic growth of our country and our people. I just returned from China, from Beijing, as I was telling Dr. Battu. The one that was impressed me is about the innovation approach in 4 areas, Dr. Battu. One is innovation on the public policy. Of course, we are tending to focus when we are talking innovation is only the technology. It is not only technological innovation. It is the policy, public policy innovation. As the business school, you may learn also what is the policy on mining policy. What is the policy in the palm oil production? Does it also consider as destroying the forest or extracting the depleted resources? So what does it impact on the people's welfare, on the, again, environmental and economic change? So those has to be supported by strong, sound public policy in that direction. And the second one, definitely technology is one of the key issues, because you have the option, you have the category, what kind of technology you want to choose. Especially when we're trying emphasizing on the downstream processing, how this raw material can be brought all the way to the down side of end of the manufacturing process until product with the high value added. So technology innovation is very, very important, definitely. The third one, I think this is where your expertise will be also important, is on the institutional innovation. Where is the, the community participation? Where is the civil society participation? Where is the inclusivity? All the people in the parties. Where is the role of investor? Where is the role of, professional human resources to get involved? And the last one is definitely your interest. It is the financial innovation. How this project, programs, activities will be funded soundly by the innovation in the financial. All these things, because now we are approaching the digitalization, definitely information is very important. Data-driven is important, making decision, but how we can also now, everybody probably already apply that one, using the artificial intelligence, how to support the right information, the right decision, that we can come up again at the end is to increase the people's welfare and also for the humanity. And we would like to have this thing all sustainable. So with that probably perspective, let's welcome Dr. Harminder Battu to present his talk with us and give him a big applause. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Professor Aman, for the opening remarks. And next, we will hear another welcoming remarks from the Head of Education of British Council Indonesia, Mr. Muhaimin, as introduced by Professor Aman, a long-term association of IPMI. Let's welcome Mr. Muhaimin.
Thank you. Selamat siang, teman-teman. I'll be quick because I think we want to hear Dr. Battu insight on the topic. So three things really. Well, as you see in the logo there, so there is a word 90. So we are, British Council is celebrating our 90th anniversary this year. So we are quite old organization. Thank you. So. So we were founded first to help the family of Allied forces who were sort of seek refuge in the UK during World War I. And then our first missions at the time is to provide educations, mainly English language educations, to the children of Allied forces. So, and then we remain true to our missions until 90 years down the line. We still provide English language teaching and examinations to all people that sort of interact with British Council. So I would like to encourage you to follow our Instagram, because every now and then we announce that we organize workshops on various things in order to prepare you to be successful in IELTS test, because IELTS is not cheap. So the better you prepare, the better, hopefully you get better score. So this month, previous month alone, we had 6 free webinar course on reading, writing, listening, speaking, so that when you sit in IELTS test, you are better prepared. And also, every now and then we had a IELTS free trial. So it means you can come into our office and then sit in an actual IELTS test, going through reading, writing, and speaking. And the only difference is, the only two difference is you don't need to pay, and second, you don't get the certificate. But to sit in the actual IELTS test will, hopefully familiar yourself on the stages of taking IELTS, so that when you sit in an actual test, hopefully it will reduce your nervousness, and then you get a better score, and then you can go to the UK, go to Aberdeen. The second point that I want to say is that, well, British Council is known for library. Maybe your dad, your mom used to visit our library in Sudirman. In the digital age, we no longer have a physical library, but we have a digital library, and then it's still free for all citizens of Indonesia. In some country, we make it subscriptions, but for students and academic from Indonesia, is free. So just Google British Council library. It's a really rich resources, both on the popular side and also it can help you with your study. There are a lot of journals, really quality journals that you can access it for free. Otherwise, if it's in a real library, you need to pay quite substantial subscription fee. So do check our library and subscribe, because it's for all students and academics. I believe there is already almost 2,000 subscriptions from Indonesia, but we can still take more because it's a digital library. The final point that I want to make is we are celebrating our 76th anniversary in Indonesia. So, thank you. We first opened our office in Bandung in 1948. So 3 years after the independence, we opened our first office, and then the first office that we opened was also a library. So, and then, 10 years after we opened our library, there were over 300 English teachers mainly from West Java and Central Java, went to the UK with the support of British Council. So we still remain true to that missions. So if you go to studyuk.org, it's a British Council website. It's a one-stop shops for all things related with Study UK. There is a sections of scholarship there. There are full scholarship. There is a full scholarship, partial scholarship. Have a look, and hopefully there is one that suit your future career and help you to achieve your dream of maybe studying in the UK or maybe studying in Aberdeen. So that's all I want to say, and then thank you for coming this afternoon. I hope you will find Dr. Battu discussions useful for your study and also to broaden your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muhaimi, for your welcoming remarks, and also thank you for the additional information regarding the IELTS preparation and stuff. So everyone, please do make sure to follow the Instagram account, and make sure to also follow the trial, the IELTS free trial, because IELTS is really cost much. Okay, so without further ado, let's start with our main session. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Harminder Battu and Bapak Agus Loekman as the moderator for this session. The floor is yours.
So, good afternoon, everybody. It's fantastic to be here. This is my first time in Indonesia. I've traveled a little bit small. Yeah, that's okay. It's perfect. My voice is quite big, so I may wander off, but hopefully you can still hear me. If I talk too fast, tell me to slow down. Okay, just say slow down. Okay. So as I said, this is my first trip to Indonesia. I travel globally around the world, but I'm very pleased to be here. I'd like to thank the Rector. I'd like to thank this institute, and in particular, I'd like to also thank the British Council for the fantastic welcome. So let me start by saying something about myself. Who am I? And what am I doing here? Okay?
Actually, I was going to introduce you.
Oh, right. You can do that.
Sure. Thank you. I'm happy to do this.
Okay.
Well, welcome everyone. Welcome Dr. Battu for your time and opportunity for us and sharing your knowledge with us.
Dr. Harminder Battu is a reader in economics and the dean for international partnership development at the University of Aberdeen in the UK. He is also the honorary secretary of the Scottish Economic Society. He has extensive experience in teaching at both the undergraduate and postgraduate levels and has taught for many years in business economics. His research interests are in the areas of labor and spatial economics, where he has published extensively in international journals, including Economic Journal, the Journal of Population of Economics, Oxford Bulletin of Economics and Statistics. Recent research examines the impact of housing markets on unemployment, the economics of culture, and the identity, and how these impact on the employment, skills utilization in the workplace, and also technology and social well-being and worker mobility. Thank you so much. And without further ado, we welcome Dr. Harminder Battu. So please, applause for Dr. Harminder Battu. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. Sort of very well expressed. I was trying to think, I couldn't remember some of the things I had done, so I'm glad you told me. Yeah, so as I said, I'm an economist in the business school at the University of Aberdeen. I have multiple identities, so people say, who are you? Well, the key thing for this audience is that I'm an economist. So I'll talk a little bit about what I do in terms of research maybe later on. So the picture at the back, you can see my picture there. It's a funny looking photograph because my son took this picture. My son was going to do trick or treat last week, so he was wearing a Dracula outfit. And I said to my son, his name is Seiji, and I said, Seiji, I'm going to Indonesia and Jakarta next week. I have to give a talk, and they've asked for a picture. And I said, can you take a picture? He says, oh my God, Dad, right? So he quickly took this one. He says, I want to take one where you're laughing, smiling, and being very silly. So it's not a very serious one, but I think it's probably, it's quite nice, I think, in some ways. Okay. So let me say something about, that's fine. So the University of Aberdeen, where I work and where I research. So we're an ancient university founded in 1495. So I can maybe move this, right? Some typical academics who doesn't understand how to use the slides. So we were founded by a religious order. So the university is founded by someone called William Elphinston, the Bishop of Aberdeen and the Chancellor of Scotland. So when the University of Aberdeen first opened, we were extremely small. In 1495, we had 36 academics and students. And our focus was very, very narrow in 1495. 1495, over 500 years ago. And we focused upon a number of areas, including theology, law, and medicine. Okay? So here, okay, I'm trying to get this to work again. Go back. Here we go. Yeah. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go away from the microphone. So here, our mission statement is captured by this statement here. Okay? Open to all and dedicated to the pursuit of truth in the service of others. That was our mission statement in 1495, but it's also our statement today. And I really like this as a statement because it's inclusive. It tries to bring in people irrespective of where they're from, what gender they are, what race they are, and importantly, irrespective of what class they are and how much money they've got. Open to all and dedicated to the pursuit of truth in the service of others. I don't know what you know about the University of Aberdeen, but Aberdeen is based in the north of Scotland. And Scotland, of course, is part of the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is composed of England, Northern Ireland, Wales, and of course, the most important part is Scotland. Okay? So the University of Aberdeen is based in the north of Scotland. It's around 2.5 hours from Edinburgh, north on a train, and also 2.5 hours from Glasgow. So I was born in Glasgow. I studied in Glasgow, but 20 plus years ago, I went to go and work in the University of Aberdeen. Now, the University of Aberdeen is one of the ancient universities of the world. It's the 5th oldest university in the English-speaking world. We have around 5 Nobel laureates associated with the university, one of which is in medicine. Most of these Nobel laureates are from the 1950s and 1960s. We have 3,600 staff, 14,000 students, and we have students from practically every country in the world. So if I'm on campus, and this little picture here, this one here, this is King's College. If I'm walking around King's campus, I will hear many different accents. I will hear many different languages being spoken. So I could be walking along, and I'll hear people speaking Italian. I'll hear people speaking in Spanish. I'll hear some American accents, Canadians, Russians, etc., etc. On campus, there are perhaps over 130 nationalities. That's a lot of diversity in one very small place in the north of Scotland. We have around 12 academic schools. I can show this on this slide here. The most important one for you guys, of course, is the second one, which is the business school, where I sometimes work. Let me say something about the ranking of the university. The information shown in the back here. We tend to be ranked in the top 20, 25 in the UK. So if you know anything about the UK, there are over 100 universities in the United Kingdom. So we're in the kind of top quarter, 20% or so, 20, 25%. We're in the top 230, 240 in the world. So, but importantly, we've got very high levels of student satisfaction. So one way you can assess an institution is by asking students about how happy they are. Now, I'm not going to ask you how happy you are here, but in general, students are assessed every year, and they say, well, I liked my experience at Aberdeen, or I didn't. And we tend to be in the top 5 in the UK, which I think is really impressive. And that's mainly because of the quality of the staff that we employ and the experience that they provide the students. We have something called Aberdeen 2040. I don't want to talk too much about this, but one of the things I want to emphasize before I go on to my academic talk, just to get this right, is that the university is very keen on what are called interdisciplinary challenges. And I'll emphasize this because whilst you guys are all in a business school, most of what you'll be doing in your careers will not be just related to business. You'll be working in companies and enterprises in Indonesia and around the world, and you will have to speak to people who come from different disciplines. You will have to work with them successfully, so you'll be working with computer scientists, people who are experts in artificial intelligence. You'll be working with people who are experts in, let's say, law. So the key point is that you need to have that interdisciplinary mindset from the outset. It's no point in becoming interdisciplinary when you get to your place of employment. It's perhaps a little bit too late. So that's one of the things that Aberdeen is trying to emphasize, interdisciplinary research, interdisciplinary teaching. And we focus on a couple of areas which might be relevant to you guys, one of which is the energy transition. Because, of course, Indonesia is going through a significant, like Aberdeen, like Scotland, like the UK, a significant energy transition, a movement away from petroleum, oil and gas, and towards sustainable energy. We're also emphasizing data and artificial intelligence, environment and biodiversity, and finally health, nutrition, and well-being. So we talked about this earlier. One of the key focuses here about food science, food security. These are also important themes for the University of Aberdeen. If I go forward, look at this. This is something about our alliances and what we do globally. It's just worth noting that Aberdeen has significant research interests within Indonesia. I've been talking to a number of my colleagues in Aberdeen, and they say, well, yeah, we go to Indonesia every year, and we've got large projects looking at the environment, biodiversity. We've got large projects looking at legal systems, commercial law, energy law, funded by the Indonesian government, funded by various ministries. So I think for me, as the Dean for International Partnerships at Aberdeen, I want to build on that relationship that exists already and sort of, build upon the research links and look at doing things that might be more student-focused in terms of teaching collaboration. So I'll throw that out there for you to think about, okay? So what I want to do, right, this is the key thing, right? I want to focus upon this topic. Now, I have a question for you. This is really about economics. Now, I have a question. How many of you have studied some economics? Stick your hand up if you've studied economics. Hands up if you've studied economics. Right, okay. Some positive responses, some not too sure. My second question is, this is the killer question. How many of you like economics? How many of you dislike economics? Be honest. Yeah. And how many of you don't care? Okay. Now, by remarkable coincidence, when I ask this question in Aberdeen classes, I get similar responses. So students, it doesn't matter if it's Aberdeen or Jakarta, a lot of students say, oh, economics, it's too difficult. It's really annoying. It's not about the real world. Okay? Now, I've been teaching economics for 20 years. And when I first started teaching economics, I used to teach a very traditional course. A traditional course in economics, supply and demand, cost curves. When I mention these terms, you're all having nightmares, right? Market structure, perfect competition, oligopoly, duopoly. Oh my God. Externalities, right? And over the years, I've decided that, well, to be honest, the approach that I was taking to teaching those topics was not working. I was focusing upon the concept and the idea, but I wasn't really applying the concept or the idea to the real world. Often, I would talk about perfect competition, and a student would say to me, that's completely unrealistic. It's completely bonkers. Doesn't make any sense. So what I did, the last maybe 10 years, I stopped focusing upon the theory, and I started to focus upon the question. And then I cheated, and I brought the theory in later. So once I've got the students seduced by the topic, okay, it's an exciting area, then I bring in the concept or the theory afterwards. So that's the approach I've taken, and I've been teaching this course in Aberdeen in international economics. It's largely for first-year students, but I also teach this course in China, and I focus upon a number of areas, including something called the networked economy. Okay, so this is what I'm going to talk about today. The network economy is fairly straightforward. It's basically the use of technology to bring groups together, okay? Different types of users. Okay? Typically in economics, we talk about supply and demand. In a network economy, we're not really talking about supply and demand. We're not really talking about price and quantity. We're talking about scale and size, and how scale and size means that you get potential complementarities between different groups. Okay. Now, I'm going to illustrate some of this through a focus upon, but not wholly upon, the music industry. I love music. Right? We all love music, but I consume a lot of music. So my son laughs at me. I still buy vinyl records. Do you know what a vinyl record is? It's very fashionable now, but for 20 years it wasn't very fashionable. So I have around 1,000 vinyl records. I have a record player, right? And my son plays those records. He likes to listen to jazz. He's a very strange 10-year-old boy. He doesn't like Taylor Swift, but he does like Miles Davis. So he's very odd, okay? So I'm going to focus really upon the music industry with some interesting examples. Okay. This is a little bit standard, okay? So as a bit of an introduction, start off with what is innovation. We know that innovation is really important to the global economy. And we know that innovation has been important for hundreds of years. So if you go back to the late 18th century in Great Britain, where you had the Industrial Revolution, where you had the technological revolution, you'll know that innovation was central to, probably better, yeah, that's better. You'll know that innovation was central to the growth in per capita income in Great Britain, okay? It was central to the Industrial Revolution. But we also know that there's not enough innovation. That is, there exists what we might call market failure. That is, the market, left to its own devices, underproduces innovation. There's not enough, okay? And part of the reason for that is that knowledge and innovation has a public goods element to it, okay? You know what public goods are? Non-rivalry, non-excludability. So, and the other dimension to this, of course, is intellectual property rights. One of the definitions of capitalism assumes that people have property rights. So if one of you here, if this lady here innovates and creates something, okay, under economics, we assume that she has the rights to get the benefits from that innovation. She owns that particular product or process. So property rights are important in this story. Property rights allow you to make profit from your innovation. But the problem is that property rights, and these could be enforced through copyright, through patents and the like, also slow down the diffusion of innovation. They stop her technology from being used by her. It stops this diffusion of technological change. So the question I suppose I've got here is what hinders innovation? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Okay, get this to work. I keep changing this. It should work. Oops. Okay, here are some key concepts. Pretty straightforward. Innovation is essentially the invention and diffusion of new products or production methods. So it's not just about new products, but it's also about processes. So, earlier you mentioned how innovation incorporates institutional change. I'm not really going to talk about that here, but you could think about institutional change as being a change in process and how things are done. So product innovation, producing a new good at an attractive cost. There's no point in producing something if it's too expensive. Although we have examples of that, and over time they become successful. We have process innovation, where you produce something that you've always produced, but you produce it more cheaply, as a lower cost. Now, inventions or innovations can be radical, where you've got a major advance over an existing good, or they can be piecemeal or incremental. Incremental, slowly, over time, okay? Technological change can also be more general. So here I refer to general purpose technology, where that can be applied to many industries. So you can think about electricity, the internet, and AI. So AI, for example, can be used in the context of finance, but it can also be used in the context of, let's say, health systems. It has a general applicability. Innovation and knowledge can also be codified. By codified, I simply mean that you can write things down. Okay? You can set down each part of that process. Or it can be tacit. Okay? It could be implicit and it's not written down. So one way of thinking about this is to think about, for example, I like cooking. So I'm going to give you examples of things that I do. When you think about cooking a particular meal, you can use a cookbook. Yeah? You can buy a cookbook, but most of the time when I use a cookbook and I follow the codified knowledge, it's a disaster because cookbooks sometimes are not well researched. But however, sometimes I use the knowledge which my mother passes to me, and my mother is a very good cook. But the knowledge that she passes to me is tacit. It involves my mother saying to me, do a bit of this, do a bit of that, add maybe a little bit of this, and do that. It's not very precise. She doesn't write it down. Okay? And so I don't learn about this through some formal process. I almost learn about this through some sort of word of mouth. So that distinction, I think, is also very important. So these are some of the key concepts. Get this to work. Now, a question. Which of these is radical? Now, as I said, the examples I'm going to talk about focus upon music. And these show all the ways in which I have consumed music over 50 years. You're all pretty young. Some of you who are similar to me in age will recognize some of this. Others will look at this and go, oh my God, what is that? Let me go through some of these. So on the top left, we've got Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley, the technology there is called an 8-track. It's a magnetic tape, and it's quite a deep, fat box. And this was created in the mid-1960s. And my father used to have an 8-track machine in his car. And you could buy 8-track cartridges from, if you were traveling from Glasgow to London, you'd stop off somewhere at a garage and you could buy these 8 tracks there and you could load them in. They were quite cumbersome, a little bit heavy, a little bit ugly. Okay? Clearly from the 1970s, late 70s onwards, they were abandoned. Okay? We've also got here the tape. Do you recognize that? We've got 2 reels, and there the magnetic tape goes round and round. This was great. If you speak to your parents or you go to your parents' home, look inside the cupboards. You will find these everywhere. And usually you'll find that the tape has fallen out. All right? And they get mangled up. All right? Yeah, and they were horrible things. But they were great. For me, when I was a student, we used to record music from the radio because I didn't have any money to buy music. So we would sit with a cassette recorder with a tape inside, and we'd press record when that music came on. Okay? And when friends of mine and me started to go to concerts, what would happen is that one of the friends would take a tape recorder, stick it in their pocket, and record the concert. Not visually, but just the sound. The quality of production was terrible. I still have some of those from 20, 30 years, longer than that, I think. I'm not going to tell you my age. Down here on the left is a record player. So you could think of 1850s or so, the first record players, the gramophone. As I said, these were popular for a long period of time until about the 1990s, when they were replaced by compact discs. But now there's been a renaissance. So now it's very fashionable. You can go to coffee shops and there's cool people who show you their latest record collection. I've got 1,000 records. Not all of them are cool. Okay? Many of them are scratched. Okay? We've also got here the Sony Walkman. Did anyone here own a Sony Walkman? Everybody. We all had one. Yeah. And this is where we loaded this thing into that. So this is, again, pre-digital. Okay? Interesting thing, many of these inventions were in Japan. A lot of these were within Japan. The Sony Corporation was pivotal. Down here, we've got, up here, what's that one? Nope. Mini disc player. Do you remember mini disc player? It was very fast. Again, Sony Corporation. It was very fashionable. I've still got a mini disc player with a little small cartridge. Now, it was a beautiful product, but it didn't really get widespread. It didn't really take over the market. It wasn't a dominant market leader. Okay? Because what happened was that digital comes along, and we get the one at the bottom here, iPod. Everyone had an iPod. I've still got my old iPod. Yeah, I don't know if it works, but it's still there. And here, this was the horrible one, CDs. Again, it's digital, pressed onto this small CD, which was then cased in this plastic bit of junk with a terrible design at the front. The CD. My God. And I've got and at the time, I remember many people sold all their records, gave them away, and bought CDs. And then, of course, you've got today, and you've got Spotify, you've got Apple Music, Amazon Music, and I think you've got in Indonesia, who's the big player in streaming? There's a local company, I think, which has is a dominant market share. So the point is that we've moved quite a lot in 50, 60 years of me consuming music. The way we consume has changed a heck of a lot. I don't know what the next step is here. It just seems, in a sense, quite preposterous what might happen. Right, I'm going to ignore that. So what I want to focus upon is why you don't get enough innovation. Okay? In the music sector, there is a lot of innovation, but in other areas, there's not. Okay? Why is there not enough innovation? What stops innovation from coming about? Well, I think there's two sources of market failure. Okay? First is something called external effects and the coordination issues that arise from that. So the argument here is that an invention is not only a benefit to the individual inventor or the company, but it also has externalities. Okay? There are consequences for others in the marketplace. That is, inventions have positive or negative effects on the values of other firms' investments. And those firms fail to take account of those innovations. So I'll talk about that in a little second. And also, secondly, to do with size, economies of scale. Economies of scale, increase the size of the company and watch the long-run average costs decline. Okay, size is quite important. And under that setup, you end up with something called winner takes all. Okay? So average costs fall with production. So the first entrant can temporarily wipe out and take the complete market. So example would be, I don't know, Amazon or Google. They're so large that it's very difficult for anybody else to enter. Okay? Okay? They become dominant players. And that's a problem for economists because, as an economist, I don't like monopoly. I like competition. But you guys all think, okay, Amazon can deliver to me very quickly, it can deliver to me within hours, and it can deliver to me allegedly at a lower price. And I say allegedly, okay? So let's talk about these external effects. So here, as I said, innovation is part of a social process. There are effects upon other firms. And you can think about these external effects being complementary or substitutes. So here, if innovations are complements, that might mean that certain innovations don't happen. So think about, I'll give you one example. It's not a music example. This example is based upon tins. Tins and tin openers. Tins and tin openers are clearly complementary goods. Okay? However, tins were invented 50 years or 45 years before tin openers. can you imagine how cumbersome and difficult it was to open a tin of soup without a tin opener? It's quite difficult. People trying to stab the tin with a knife and probably endangering themselves in the process. So those are complementary innovations, but there's no way to coordinate that. It took 50 years for that coordination to occur. Of course, nowadays, tins are simply ring pulls. You just pull the ring. But how many times have you pulled the ring on a tin and the ring has come off? And then you have to go back to the tin opener. So that's one example. The other example, back to music, focuses upon records and record players. These are complements, okay? You can't play records on any other device other than a record player, okay? Now, and of course, this is complementary, so how did companies get around this problem of underproduction? Well, what happened was that the record companies, or the record player producers, provided record players to consumers cheaply in order to get them to buy the machinery, so therefore they would end up buying the records. So you provide people with record players, and therefore they end up then buying records themselves. A more contemporary example of that, I suppose Adobe. You know when you open you use Adobe Reader to open a PDF file, okay? They suck you in, give you that for free, so that you end up using the larger Adobe Acrobat software. Again, they're complementary, but you probably wouldn't end up buying the other one unless they kind of provided you something for free. Here's another example where perhaps the innovations are substitutes. And if they're substitutes, you're perhaps going to end up with what is called wasteful innovation. Now, some of you will remember this from the time. Others will probably know about this because this is always a classic example of wasteful innovation. So my father in the 1970s, my father was this Indian man who really liked buying Japanese products. Because in the 1970s, it was fashionable. You buy, Japanese make such great electronic goods. So he was one of the first people that he knew that owned a JVC VHS player and recorder. And that's the one here on the left. So for the young people here, if we wanted to watch a movie at home, you would go to what is called a video shop and hire or rent one of these. And it's this cartridge, and you would stick it in to the video machine, and it would play. The quality was usually terrible. At the time, you didn't notice because you were watching it at home. Only later, when you've got digital, you compare. If you still got a video player at home, stick on a video cassette and look at the quality of what you were watching and what you were happy with at that point, and you'll see how things have evolved. So that was this one. And then, but the competitor at the time was another Japanese company who produced the Betamax. It was Sony Corporation. So both of them were running at the same time, right? And my father had this one, but some of my relatives had this one. And the consensus, even at the time, was that Betamax was better quality. This one was seen to be better. But this one didn't win. This one won. And that's strange, isn't it? So the superior product didn't dominate the market. The inferior product, the relatively inferior product, managed to win or dominate the market. And why? Well, part of the reason for that was that this one could scale up in terms of customers. It managed to get to a tipping point. You know the term tipping point? They managed to get enough customers that everybody switched. Everybody switched from one to the other. Because remember, in order to play films on this, you had to go to a video shop. Right? So people will switch. And of course, not all video shops stocked both types of videos. They either did one or the other. The bigger ones stocked both. But the Betamax range was usually quite small. Okay? And of course, this is also connected to movie producers. You know, when you're making a movie, You make the movie, it goes to the cinemas. But then later on, you're thinking, okay, where shall I go with Betamax or shall I go with VHS? Which of the two will I go for? Well, there's more consumers consuming this one, even though this one's better. So to save costs, we'll go towards this here. We'll only produce in using VHS. Okay. Come. Doesn't like that. Oops, a daisy, I keep coming out. So the other thing, well, given this, what do we do? What do we do? Well, what are the policy options? There exist these externalities, and different types of externalities depending upon whether we have complements or whether we have substitutes. So if it's complements, what do we do? Well, one thing you could do is the government could simply intervene. The state should get involved. And the government here might subsidize the innovation, okay? Or, importantly, it might allow the firms to coordinate. Now, the reason I mention that is that usually governments don't like it. I've done it again. Governments don't usually like it when firms coordinate. So imagine that you two are the firms, and I'm the government. Okay, I'm the government, and you're tin opener and tins. I want you to get together. I want you to get together to innovate because one innovation helps the other. But normally, we don't like it when companies get together like that because often when companies collude, they go against the public interest. There might be monopoly concerns. Okay? So the other problem is that imagine all of you are my companies. How do I get all of you to coordinate? It's easy when it's 2 or 3 firms, but imagine that there's like 20 firms and you want them to coordinate in terms of innovation. Trying to get them to coordinate is nigh impossible, okay, because they want to argue. They disagree, okay? And the other thing is, other negative consequence, is that some of the firms might say to the government, okay, if you want me to coordinate, give me money, give me resources, or give me preferential rates or access to particular markets. So then firms may have an incentive to lobby the government. So then you end up with this kind of political economy aspect to this. The other thing is you just say, well, just allow private markets to form. If they don't form, so be it. It's better to let markets get on with it, even with a delay, because of the complications surrounding government failure. So in economics, we talk about government failure as opposed to market failure, because sometimes governments, by encouraging, may actually end up generating worst outcomes. Now, what if there are substitutes? Well, in that case, you could get these types of arrangements. So, for example, the European Commission can help firms agree on technical standards. So here you've got global mobile telecommunications for the old 2G network. That is, the government sets the rules of the game. It decides for you what the framework is or what the rules of the game are. Okay. Another example of this might be in the shipping industry. Now, you'll notice that the shipping industry has become a lot more efficient over the last 50 years. And that's because in terms of the sizes of the shipping containers, we've had this sort of move towards a standard size of container, which makes ports and transportation much more efficient. And part of that drive has come from governments. Again, part of it's come from the private sector. So here, we can also say that firms may privately choose to coordinate if one technology is superior to the other. I suppose the VHS Betamax case is illustrative here because Betamax, they simply left the market. They know they'd lost. And okay, what's the point in persisting? We've lost this particular game. Let's move on to something else. Okay. Okay. Can I get this right? So the economies of scale argument is also quite interesting. And this is where I put in a diagram.
This is where the students go, oh, this is why I hate economics. Because you always put in a diagram which I don't understand, okay? Hopefully this diagram is pretty neat and tidy, okay? So what this diagram does is it talks about what are called first copy costs. It's costly to produce the first copy of new knowledge, but much cheaper to reproduce. So think about it, a new album by an artist, a new textbook, new drugs, a new app. Okay, this could be an app for Android or for Apple, or a new movie. Now, the initial cost, the first copy cost, will be fairly large. Okay, so you think about this in terms of COVID and COVID vaccines. They cost billions, absolutely billions, because of the huge amount of scientific research, the trials that went on, and so on. So they cost billions. But the cost of actually distributing the product are relatively small, okay? Are relatively small compared to the initial startup costs. Another example would be in the context of my old example of music. So in the context of music, if you produce a new album, you need a studio, okay? You need a studio, you need studio time, you need to get musicians. Perhaps they're your own musicians, but you may also hire in musicians. They're called session musicians. You may also use sound engineers, and you will also have a music producer. Those costs can be quite substantial. And I think, what was it? Back of my head, I think the most expensive album produced was by Michael Jackson. $35 million. $35 million to produce one record, okay? 35 million. So that's the first copy cost, okay? And even in those days when that was produced under non-digital technology, the cost of actually getting it to the shops was quite small, and the cost to the consumer was quite small, okay? So in terms of this diagram, okay, I've got costs on the vertical axis. I've got quantity on the horizontal axis. 5 more minutes. I've got total costs that go left to right. You'll notice that total costs at zero production is extremely, extremely high. The red line starts at 90,000, but only gradually goes up. Average costs decline over time. Marginal cost, which is the additional cost of getting the thing to the market, is either zero or extremely low. So the example you gave of the British Council library, the marginal cost to you of using that is zero. Zero, okay? Now, the marginal cost of your parents to use that in the past was probably high because they had to get a train or a bus or whatever, okay? So marginal costs under digital technology can be effectively zero. Okay. There are also network effects on the demand side. That is, the benefits to users increase with the number of users. So this is languages. It could be social media platforms. So for example, I don't speak any Indonesian languages. I don't speak Indonesian. It would be very useful for me to speak Indonesian here. But in Aberdeen, probably no point, because there are very few Indonesian speakers. The point is that the benefits of an activity will rise when the number of people also doing that activity rise. So, for example, social media platforms. People use Facebook. I don't do social media because it takes up too much time, right? And I don't want these companies stealing my data, right? But if you use a social media platform, you will only use it if there are significant numbers of other people using it, i.e. there are positive externalities from scale, okay? As I said, we've got this winner-takes-all competition where a single company, Facebook, Google, Amazon, can dominate due to its extensive user base. But the problem is, as I said, even with these kind of networks, there's no guarantee that the best product will win. The classic example going back is, of course, Betamax is higher quality than VHS. Now, is Amazon the best? Well, we don't know. There could well have been other producers out there which were better. But Amazon has got first mover advantage. Okay? Okay. I'm going to try and be a little bit quicker. So what I wanted to do on my final slide is talk about Spotify. Okay, I've been told to wrap up a little bit. I use Spotify, so I'll be quick on this, right? Now, Spotify makes its money from subscription. So how many people here have got a Spotify account? Right, okay. Quite a few of you. Now, I've had one for 10 years, and I have a confession, but don't tell anyone this, okay? For many years, I was pretending to be a student. So I was using my university email address, and in Spotify, the girl's like, oh my God. For many years, I was pretending. I wasn't pretending. They said, type in your email address. And I typed in my university email address. And automatically, it assumed that I was a student. And so it was only charging me £5 a month. After 10 years, they sent me a message saying, this is the longest degree. Right? I have been caught. And so therefore, they changed the price to $10.99. I immediately cancelled because I was annoyed, really frustrated. I was like, I want to get rid of this, right? But then a week later, I was missing my music. And then I went back and resubscribed. So I'm paying $10.99. The point is, right, Spotify gets most of its income from subscriptions. But Spotify doesn't make any money. It doesn't make any profit. Who makes profit? Who benefits from Spotify? The consumer, because you have lots of choice. So you can listen to music from Armenia. You can listen to whatever strange thing that floats your boat or interests you from any part of the world. You have a heck of a lot of choice. So you benefit. Spotify doesn't benefit, but does the artist benefit? Now, I started to look into this, and it's really difficult to find out how artists get paid. Remember, artists are the factors of production here. They are the producers. They are the ones who make the music. So I did a little bit of digging around, and I discovered that artists only get 0.001 pence per stream. Imagine the old worker. I'm not a Marxist, but I think there's probably something problematic with that. If I'm an artist and I've spent a lot of time investing in creating something, but you only give me 0.00, not you, Spotify, then is there an incentive for me to produce? Okay? Now, so that's what you get. What does that mean? It means that I probably need to get 2,000 downloads to buy a cup of coffee. Imagine it. And how do I pay my rent? What do I need? 1,250,000 streams to pay my monthly rent and to live. Okay? So, artists definitely lose out from this. And the other consequence of this, just very quickly, is that essentially you only get paid if the music is streamed for 30 seconds. 31 or 32 seconds, and the tail opens. Now, one of the things that has consequences of that is that musicians now are shortening the songs, make the songs shorter to grab people's attention, and also put the chorus at the beginning. Because you need to hit the 30 seconds. Because if you don't hit the 30 seconds, you don't get any money. I have a brilliant example. One American band, they released 10 songs. Okay? They were all silent. And they all lasted 32 seconds. They put them on Spotify. Can you imagine this? You produced 10 silent songs, nothing on them, and they lasted 32 seconds, and this band made $20,000 before Spotify realized and told them to remove the music. I thought that was genius. A genius bit of subversion. Okay? So I really like that. So the point is that people don't get a lot of money. Ed Sheeran, however, the very big stars, like Ed Sheeran, get a massive fortune. Taylor Swift, at one point in 2014, said that she didn't like Spotify. She said things of value need to be paid for. She changed her mind in 2017 when she allowed her music back on Spotify. Okay, so when you're using Spotify like I do, it's important that you think about the artists themselves. So what I'm going to do now, because I'm under a bit of pressure and you guys have got other classes, I've been a little bit quick, okay? So I'm going to stop here and see if there are any quick questions from anybody. A little bit crazy, but let's go for it. Any question? Anybody? One or two? You must have one or two. Yeah, the gentleman in this wonderful shirt.
So if Spotify pays 0.001 pound to the
Pence.
artist itself, and you said it costs 10.99 pound, so if we listen to 10,000 music, then Spotify loses in 1 month.
So Spotify loses money, but you got to remember, I'm not sure what the question is, but the people who gain from this are the record companies. The companies, the big three, Universal, Warner, Sony, they get 60 to 70% of the income goes to them.
From the 0.01.
From the the initial one is 0.003.
Oh.
Okay, but even that's not large.
Yeah.
So 60 to 70% of Spotify's costs are about 60 to 70% of their income. That's massive. But in the UK, they're fairly dominant. Even from a position of dominance, they don't make money. You know, Apple Music, Apple Music, of course, can run at a loss because, remember, it's able to cross-subsidize. Spotify is a one-trick pony. It only does streaming. It does some, a couple of other activities in education and the like, but in podcasts, it's putting a bit of money into that, but it doesn't have the deep pockets that Apple has or Amazon has, so they can cross-subsidize. I don't know if I'm trying to predict whether Spotify will go out of business or not. I don't like to forecast. Economists always badly forecast.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Quick question.
Anybody else?
This guy here.
Like based on your presentation about innovation, is traditional mindset can hinder innovation, or you can use innovation to change traditional mindset?
Traditional
mindset. Traditional mindset. Traditional mindset.
Exactly.
In one area, and you cannot like think about outside, and you just think about in yourself and in this area. Like you cannot open your mind to adopt some innovation, like just using that already happened.
So I think I understand what you're saying. So it's about using the technology in another area from where it was originally intended. Yeah, I suppose there's a bit of that. I suppose there's a kind of trend within innovation circles to talk about the combinations of technology. So the combining one technology from one area and combining it with another area. I suppose Tesla, is like that because you're taking the original combustible engine car, it's a motor vehicle, and then you're adding electric, the E bit to it. So I suppose that's an example of something out with. It's a combination of technologies. That could be an example. I'm not sure if Tesla is a radical innovation. My neighbor has 2 Teslas across the road from me. I don't own a car, I have a bicycle. So he has 2 Teslas across the road, but to me, Tesla looks like a car. It's a car. It's not a car. You know, if I define it differently, then I might think it's radical. My son loves it because it's got a very big TV screen. Yeah. Any other quick questions? The gentleman in the red.
Just all right. So thank you, sir, for your presentation. I do have a question for a subscription service, but it's not about music. It's about movie streaming like Netflix and HBO Max, something like that. So in the case of like Spotify and Apple Music, they usually do not have exclusive or like their own show. But in the case of like movie subscription like Netflix, HBO Max, they have their own exclusive. And back when Netflix just started, they were very convenient for the customer. You can watch a lot of movies, watch a lot of shows in one place. But right now, what I'm seeing with movie subscription is that it has become a hindrance for people, because if you want to watch like let's say a show, you have to watch it specifically in one of the subscription service. You cannot just watch it on Netflix. So do you think that this is a hindrance for the customer? And what do you think is the best case for movie streaming ahead in the future? Thank you.
That's a really good question. Because I have a 10-year-old, and when you've got a 10-year-old, they want to watch everything, right? So you end up subscribing to too many of these services. So I've got Disney, I've got Discovery, got Netflix, I've got a TV license which allows me access to the BBC. And then my son likes to watch football, so therefore he wants to watch, Arsenal, his football team, and I don't like them. So therefore he has to subscribe for that. But if he wants to watch a European game, he has to subscribe to another one. And this goes on and on and on. And personally what I do is every 3 months, I go to my bank account and I shut some of them down. And don't tell my son, okay? But you're right. I think there's a huge transaction costs, the huge significant financial and transaction costs associated with all of these multiple platforms, all providing slightly different variations of the same thing. And it's really frustrating. One of the consequences of that, and this is where it's tricky, is that people then end up going back towards illegal sites. Yes. And so, for example, for football, it's really expensive to watch Premiership games, to watch the Champions League. So what do? You find illegal sites. And one of the challenges for Spotify, you remember Spotify came from a world where people used to download music for free. Napster was the technology. You used to have peer-to-peer downloads. I had friends who used to download thousands. They used to use up the internet, downloading lots of music onto their machines. But Spotify, in a sense, has been beneficial in a sense that it's kind of, especially in the UK and United States, I'm not sure about Asia, it's zapped that market by making it cheap and accessible. But maybe we'll end up in the broader sort of entertainment sector, we might end up with counterfeit products coming into the market, and that will force these companies to maybe coordinate. Because you could think that this is perhaps wasteful innovation. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Really what you want a world where everything is £5 all in one place. Yeah, like but you almost want to go back to the world that I grew up in when we had the BBC and we had 3 TV channels. You see the merits of that world? Too much choice. I know economists like to talk about choice. Too much choice scares people. They run away. Yeah. Final ones? That was a good question. I like that.
Maybe from my side.
Yeah, go for it.
One question. How can, on equitable access and inclusivity, how can developing nations or smaller businesses benefit from the networked economy?
That's a horrible question to ask me. It's like a hand grenade rolling towards me going, pick that up. To be honest, I teach a bit of development economics, and I suppose I know a little bit about India. I don't know enough about the Indonesian market. I suppose the question is, well, if there are innovations locally, are they portable globally? Are there things that Indonesia produces, doesn't really matter which sector or which area, that might be picked up by somebody living in Aberdeen or in Kansas I suppose that, and there are some positive examples there. So the Japanese example is fantastic because they've been able to make their innovations very portable, and they've been and I suppose the Chinese are trying to do it, but perhaps I think TikTok, and the Koreans have done it brilliantly because Korea's cool. You know, you can see that influence, especially among young people who want to buy Korean products or technology. So I don't think there's no hindrance as such, but I suppose it's got to be culturally adaptable or culturally relevant. But that takes time because you have to remember that, you know, a lot of Americans and British people are quite narrow in their focus. It takes them a long time to understand anything that's going on with their own backyard. But the examples that are there are probably, you know, helpful in that sense. They kind of provide a path forward. I suppose the other issue, in thinking as an economist, is that there are quite a lot of restrictive practices. So if you think about the TikTok one, it's quite odd. I've never used TikTok. I don't even know what it is, right? I'll be honest. And because I'm too old, and if I go on there, I'll just confuse myself. But I find it odd that the American government wants to ban this technology on the basis of data when American consumers are quite happy to give Mark Zuckerberg as much data as he wants. I wonder whether it's about protectionism. Well, it is about protectionism. Geopolitics. It's about that Trumpian, broader Trumpian agenda. Don't want to talk about Trump. Not this week. It's too scary.
Bu Yulita, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Battu.
Yes, I'm Yulita. Actually, I'm teaching economics in this school. Yeah, I'm teaching micro, macro to the international economic. That I would like to ask, right? You're also teaching economics, correct?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, yeah. How to make the student more paying attention on the economic? Because that's very important.
Beyond giving them money. Do you know what? I have classes. In Aberdeen, we don't have compulsory classes, so students can do what they like.
Okay.
I think in Asia, there's much more of an expectation that students turn up. But that's changing. Students are changing. Students walk, they exit, they voice. I've got a class which, out of maybe 150 students, I get 100 students coming to every class. Okay. Because basically I'm annoying. And I go around and I try to figure out people's names and I badger them. I think the way I've tried to do it, and it's not completely successful, and the reason I mention attendance is that some lecturers I know, there'll be like only 10% of the students turn up, 20%, because they think it's all online. There's video recordings, there's all this. I don't record. If a student wants to come to my lectures, come to the lecture. I don't record things. You know, if people have disabilities and things like that, then I can help. But more positively, I think it's about talking about the topic and not talking. Never start a lecture with cost curves. You know, the concepts, sneak them in. The theory, sneak it in. But if you're doing intermediate economics, then probably that's not a good strategy. But if you're doing first-year economics, it's probably a good way to teach economics. Because the way I was taught economics was terrible. It was awful. The lecturer used to read the book. I could read the book. It's not a good, you know. So I think it's changed. I think focusing on the topic and things that interest students. Now, the problem is that you don't have a lot of power in a module. The module says, you've got to do this, 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 this. In my course, there's no exam. I can do what the hell I like, right? And no one tells me. As long as the student feedback is very good, no one annoys me. But for some courses, you have to do the cost curves, the markets, and whatever.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. It depends on your constraints. I don't have a magic bullet for you.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Battu. Can we have a question about the business school, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Interested? Anyone would like to know more about the Aberdeen Business School? Any questions?
I suppose it's just a not standard business school. It's a good business school. We're not massive. So we're not like a huge business school where you got lots and lots of people and you don't get personal attention. I still go to my office every day, mainly because my wife kicks me out. Okay, so I tend to engage with students and have an open door policy. I like talking to students because students have got like some of these questions here. Some of these questions are excellent, and I learn. You know, somebody can teach me about TikTok. Not that I really want to know, but you know what I mean? I don't want to go on there, but if someone could tell me some of the economics behind it, that was quite interesting. So maybe next time someone can come, one of the students can give a presentation on the economics of TikTok for all of us old people.
Well, talking about the Aberdeen's business school, are you offering also the joint degree with other universities?
Yeah, we have joint degrees with quite a few Chinese institutions. We're looking at one with Telkom University in Bandung, where I'm going on Thursday, and with Indian University. So we have quite a few joint programs, and I teach in China as part of a joint program. It's hard work because I teach a whole course in 1 week. Yeah, from 8:30 in the morning till 4:30 every day for 4 or 5 days. After day 3, the students want to kill me.
All right.
I don't know are most of you undergraduate students here?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you've got, you know, I'm quite happy, and maybe people want to talk about that later, you know, when people go away. I'm happy to give people any advice on postgraduate study. I'm an academic, so you're not going to get sales from me. That's not my style. Yeah, people want to come to Aberdeen, that's great. You'll get a good education, but there are other, as they say in advertising, there are also other good institutions out there. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Battu.
Thank you.
And again, applause for Dr. Battu. Thank you so much. Hopefully this will not be the first time to IPMI. Hopefully, please do welcome.
I'll be glad to come back, and maybe a little bit more time would be good, and maybe it's a bit more slowly from me. I have jet lag. Okay, so yes. Okay, so thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Now I'd like to return the floor to our MC, and we'll continue with our program. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Papa Agus, Loekman, and Dr. Battu for the interesting session. Okay, now we've reached the end of this international guest lectures class, and we hope this talk made you think of a new perspective of this topic, especially on economy. And a big thank you to Dr. Harminder Battu for his insights, and to all of you for joining us. Now we would like to express our gratitude and give a token of our appreciation to our guest lecturer that will be handed by Professor Insinyur Aman Wirakartakusumah. So we'd like to have Professor Aman and Dr. Battu to come to the front and to receive the token of appreciation. Please, Mr. Battu, to come front, please. All right, a big applause, everyone, to Dr. Battu and Professor Aman. And all right, once again. Okay, thank you. And next is our token of appreciation to the British Council that will be represented by Bapak Agus Loekman to come to the front to give the token to Bapak Muhaimin. and hope our engagement and relationship to last to the next years. Okay. All right, thank you. Sorry, Sultan, should we have another photo session with everyone? All right. Okay, so I think all the students from the right and left wings to come closer to the middle. We will be taking photos together. Okay, everyone come closer to the middle. Bapak Agus, please seat beside Dr. Battu. Okay, come closer, everyone. I think from the edge. Itu agak yang ke depan. Sama yang sebelah kiri mungkin agak ke depanan dikit ya, soalnya yang belakang terlalu mepet. Ini pakai 0,5. Oke. Agak gede. Oke. Okay, once again, 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you everyone. All right, everyone, thank you very much for your participation in this international guest lecture. Hope you found this event to be informative and useful, and we look forward to more exciting guest lectures in the future. Take care and have a great day, everyone.